It's January, so we got to talk transfers. Tanguy Ndombele hoping to move away from Spurs in the January transfer window. There's a feeling that this departure would be best for both parties, player and club. But let's talk about whether this is actually something that's realistic. Jules back with us here. Jules, how can this go ahead? Would there be interest for this player?
Well, I think if you look at the talent, of course, there was interest when he chose Spurs after leaving Lyon. The problem is, one, he hasn't played much. He hasn't played well, or certainly not well enough for the talent that he has. I think every club will know that there's been a lot of issues off the field with different managers. Jose Mourinho, that clashed. Nuno, that clashed. Conte, that clashed as well. The fact that he's on huge wages too, over £200,000 a week, which again, unless you're a top club, and even right now, even top clubs are very reluctant to pay that kind of money, especially when you have to take a gamble, because this would be a gamble on Tanguy. It's very difficult. He really wants to go. I think he wanted to go last summer as well. He knew that he was not going to get on with Nuno, and that was the right thing to do. He wanted to leave even before that. The thing is, Spurs won't let him go for cheap either, because they spent and invested a lot of money on him as well in terms of transfer fee, over £60 million. He's their most expensive player ever. So this is a very tricky situation. I think you're right, for both parties it will make a lot of sense, because they don't want him there. He doesn't want to be there anymore. There's no future really. But good luck for trying someone who's ready to, to offload him and pay the transfer fee as well, unless they go for a loan with an option to buy.
Stevie, what do you think of him as a player?
I think, unfortunately, what we've seen from him is just enough to keep you dangling on the edge of the fishing line. He's one of these guys, it seems to me, that just when you're about to just push him aside and let him drop and forget about him, he'll do something, or he'll put 20 or 30 minutes together and you go, well, maybe he's coming out of this. But he's had plenty of time, in my opinion. I don't think he has a future. I just don't see how he has a future at Tottenham. And the problem is, as we've just heard from Jules, if you've got a transfer fee and you're on such high wages, I mean, it makes it twice as difficult to go to a team that you might want to go to as well, because I'm sure some of the top clubs will have looked at him, same as me, and not been particularly impressed. So he looks to me as though he's going to be stuck at Tottenham for not just this window, but maybe the next one as well.
Don, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's frustrating, Kay, because, skill-wise, talent-wise, he ticks a lot of boxes because he's unbelievably talented. But when you play in the Premier League, you've got to have more strings to your bow. You just can't rely on your talent. You have to be hard-working. If Spurs haven't got the ball and you're playing for Jose Mourinho or Nuno or Antonio Conte, they're going to demand something when you haven't got the ball. He's one of these number 10s that probably in the Premier League 10 years ago, 15 years ago, would have been outstanding. He could have played as a number 10. Managers 10, 15 years ago were carrying number 10s. They allowed him to be that maverick, and they built a team around number 10s. The league's moved on. It's too fast. It's too quick. Everyone, when you haven't got the ball, needs to put a shift in. He's not that type of player. And as Jules said, I mean, I found it astonishing when Jules said that he's on over £200,000 a week. I mean, that is incredible. And, you've got to question his work ethic as well, and not just him. There's two or three others at Tottenham that don't seem to want to put a shift in. The guy, I believe, I've read his backstory a few months, when he signed for the football club, and, he was struggling to make it in French football. He got his act together, he dug deep, he worked hard, and all of a sudden he got his dream move to Tottenham, the most expensive player in their history. You'd like to think every single day when he comes into Tottenham, he should be bouncing into the place. He should have loads of energy to burn because he's made it. He's set for life. Now all of a sudden he's sort of like put the brakes on a little bit and got a little bit too comfortable. That doesn't work in the Premier League anymore.
And it certainly doesn't work, Shaka, under Antonio Conte.
No, it doesn't. And listen, I think the guy summed up Ndombele perfectly well there. Every now and then you see a performance from him that suggests that he's a really good player, and you do have a gem on your hands, but then he goes missing. And now here's the question, especially after having run-ins with the managers that he did, managers like Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, who takes that chance on him. And right now, none of the big clubs in Europe would. Nobody in the top half of the Premier League would. So are the clubs who have money and in the bottom half and are bottom half of the table and maybe are desperate for taking that gamble and bringing quality into their squads. How many clubs are there? And as we sit right now, I'm only thinking Newcastle. But then, given his history with some of the best managers in world football, how does he fit in? How does he acclimatize to sitting in a dressing room in the midst of relegation clash? And it just doesn't add up. So how Spurs get themselves out of this, I absolutely have no idea. They don't get the money back that they paid for him. If they want to send him off on loan, they're going to have to pick up at least 50% of his wages. So either you just kind of bite the bullet and accept that you're going to pay him and swallow that loss, or you find somebody who is at least willing to pick up some of it, because you're not going to get anybody picking up more than 50%.
Kay, Jose Mourinho said yesterday, sorry, Kay, Jose Mourinho called his team weak yesterday.
Yeah,
and
he did.
It wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't surprise me if, because Juve have been backed and they've spent a lot of money in the summer window, the most in Serie A, and Jose spent a lot of money and he wants players in. It wouldn't surprise me if they went in with, as Jules said, a loan move for Ndombele with an option to buy. It wouldn't surprise me if Jose tried to make that move happen.
Oh, well, that's one to keep an eye out for. As too, is Adama Traore potentially going to Spurs as well? That's what some of the reports are saying right now, that's where this player could be going, in talks with Wolves to secure the signing of him. And it's said, due to ESPN sources, as per them, he'd be a strong option at wing-back in Conte's preferred system. Obviously, there could be some competition here. Barcelona has been mentioned, and obviously his history lies there. But Don, do you think this would be a good fit?
I think it would be. You'd have to learn the position. I think he'd done some of his best work at Wolves when he was actually playing through the middle as a sort of number 9 stroke number 10. He'd done all his work previously before that out on the right-hand side as an orthodox winger. So when you think Antonio Conte and you think wing-backs, he's obviously not sold on Emerson Royale, but then you think what he'd done to Victor Moses, and he turned him from a winger, from a right-back, if you like, into being one of the best wing-backs in the country at the time. And I think the 2 years that Jose was at Chelsea, and he had Victor Moses absolutely flying. So I think the end product is always a worry for me. When I watch Adama Traore play, I think, skillful, tricky, pace to burn. There's no one in Europe that can live with him pace-wise. He just needs to start adding numbers, whether that's numbers with assists, numbers for goals. That's the only thing where he needs to improve on. And he's still young. You see his age there, 25. So he's got a lot of scope and a lot of room to improve. But for the money, if it's reported between 16, 17, 18 million pound in today's terms, might be a good buy.
It could be, but Jules, we see Adama Traore linked so often to different clubs, and he's still so far stayed put at Wolves. Can you see this happening, him going to Spurs?
Yeah, and simply, I think the big difference is that his contract is getting closer to the end, and I think Wolves know they know that he's not going to renew it. I think they've tried for many months now to sit him down and say, hey, let's commit to the future together, just to get his value as high as possible, and not to be in a position where he will have 12 months left on his contract or 18 months. And then you will have to obviously sell him for much lower price than maybe what he's worth it, or what you think, or what your value of him is, which is what we are now talking about. I think probably 25 million pounds is around the value of him now, whereas easily they could have maybe got 40 if he had 2 or 3 years left on a contract. So that's why I think it's also interesting for Spurs not to have another Ndombele situation on their hands where you end up spending a lot of money for someone where you're not completely sure what the end product will be. And for me, this is the case. It might work great, and he might become a great wing-back where he will spend more time attacking than defending, really. Or it might not work out at all. In that case, you can always keep him as a left winger, or like Don said, more centrally. But if the idea is to try to transform him into a right wing-back, it's a gamble. Another one, again, that you can't commit too much money on.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.